We're going to integrate Typesense. Make you explained it's an open source search alternative. And we're going to integrate it to Astro, which is a static site builder. But more about that in a bit. Before we start, I'm Chris. I'm a proud husband and a dog owner. So if you hear a bark, it's my dog. Um, I'm a senior developer at daily.dev. If you don't know daily.dev, it's a very cool browser extension to get the latest news on your um, welcome tab on Chrome or Firefox or whatever you're using. And yeah, pretty cool. I am indeed a Dutch citizen and I'm living, well, kind of everywhere in the world, but mostly in South Africa and the Netherlands. And in my spare time, when I'm not blogging, I love to hike and enjoy good food. So the blogging is quite a big part, as I do that like every single day. So yeah, it's just a big part of what I do. Let's look at what we'll be doing today. So first, I'm going to explain what we're building, what the end result is. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what Typesense is and a little bit what Astro is. Then we'll start by setting up the Typesense Cloud, creating a scheme in Typesense, creating a searchable index in Astro, and how we can populate the search database in Typesense. And we'll create a search interface in Astro, and last but not least, we'll set up a post-build command to automatically re-index our search database. Just gonna quickly see if we don't have any questions. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A section here, and I'll try to answer them in between. Right, so let's just get right into it and see what we're building. So the end result will look something like this. So it's obviously not the most styled system that we could have made, but it's a working system. So what we see here is an Astro website. These are blog posts. So as you can see, there's 3 blog posts, and there's a search field, and that's basically where the magic comes in. So the search field is powered by Typesense, and it allows us to search in all the data we have. And a little bit of background why this is important is because static websites, they, as the word says, are static. So they often don't have a like proper database behind it, or the ability to run a server-side script that could handle search for us. So with Typesense, that's like pretty well solved, and we can include that in basically any static site generator to have an easy way of searching through our results. Cool. All right, then a little bit about Typesense. So it's an open source project, and it's basically the open source answer to like Algolia and whatnot, providing a very powerful, fast search interface. You can either host it yourself, but they do offer a cloud-based solution, which I'll be showing in this article today, just because it's easiest to set up and you know, the easiest to get a feel for how it works. Basically, throughout this series, you'll see kind of what it can do and how it works. Which I find it really powerful because it can search on multiple kind of aspects of everything. So you don't have to type the exact words you're looking for, but it can be like a fuzzy kind of word, or you can make a typo. It doesn't really matter. So that's pretty cool. Then a little bit about Astro. Astro is a static site generator. Quite a big fan. They just won most innovative framework, I think, in the Jammies. So there's like Jamstack awards for static site builders and stuff like that. So pretty exciting. They just beat 11T, which was also one of my favorites. So it's a quite hard thing. But anyway, static site builders are pretty amazing. They're super fast because they just output plain HTML websites. But that brings, like I said, some issues with them, is that they can't really handle server-side scripting unless you use serverless functions, but that's another story. We could have done that, but this is like way easier to do. So, right. Then we'll be starting by setting up the Typesense Cloud. And yeah, I think we'll actually just get started with this. So what we'll do is, cool. We'll go to cloud.typesense.org, and at the first time, it will ask you to log in and link your account. So I just used this login with GitHub. It's like the easiest thing ever. You just, I don't know, you have to authorize it once, I think, if I remember correctly. Really wasn't difficult. And then what we have is like clusters. The clusters are kind of like your data stores, I guess, if I say that correct. I'm just going to walk through this with you guys. So the cluster is kind of like how much memory must this thing have. As you can see, you can go berserk with these things. For our demo, I just used the little one. I don't need high availability. Like it's fine to have these things. So you can set this up. Region. I mean, I technically should pick Cape Town, and then we can say which Typesense version. I'm just going to use the latest one, and that's about it. So it'll tell us what it's going to cost. And as you can see, we get the first 10 gigs for free and the first 720 hours for free. Yeah, but either that, it's not really expensive, to be honest, for what it does. So, and like I said, you can host it yourself if you want to. Right. So let's just go ahead and then launch this cluster as well. You can always just kill it after a while. So this will take a while, right? So our cluster is being provisioned. Says it takes about like 5 minutes. What this does is it will generate an API key for us. So we're going to use that in a second. But let's just head back to the presentation, right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a schema in Typesense. And what that is basically a index of what our search is going to look like, right? So as you can see in this little example, I don't know if you can see this really well, but it says what kind of fields we are using. We can set the default sorting field. We can name this collection. So in our case, it's going to be a post. And it's going to have a title, a description, and a slug, right? Where the title is the title of the post, description makes sense, and slug is the URL. Okay, so before we can do this, we have to set up the Astro project, which is all explained in this blog post that is also linked in the chat here. See, Joshua linked it again, so thank you for that. This blog post has a little bit more detail, so just have a read through that if you're following along. Basically, what we're doing at this point is we need to set up Astro, right? Astro is super easy to set up. You just make a directory, navigate to it, init Astro, and then you can run it. So I've already done these steps. So we have a blog up and running. I created 3 posts. So we have 1, 2, 3. Each post has some data. As you can see, Fred is one of the maintainers of Astro. It's just some basic stuff, really. But that's not really a concern for this tutorial. So it comes with 1 blog post. So I just copied it and changed the title so we can actually search on that. What we'll do now is we're going to go to this step, right? So we want a way to send the schema to Typesense. But before we do that, we need to install some dependencies. So the first is we want to use the .env thing. I hope npm's working since it like crashed yesterday or like it was unavailable. Always Nice. So this one will install a dev dependency for .environment files, meaning we can use the .environment. So CNPM's up and running. So what we then must do is we must create a .env file, and this file can have this content. So what we have here is some variables that we want to keep a secret, so we don't want to publish this to GitHub or wherever. And what it has is a Typesense host, which we'll get to in a bit once the cloud is finished running. We want to have the port, which is 443 for the cloud. The protocol is HTTPS, the admin key, and the search key. So the admin key we'll use to publish the schema and update our search index. And the search key is basically only used for the search part, so it's kind of more public. You can't do anything else than search with it. And then we want to define a search endpoint, which is going to be our website / search.json. So once you publish this whole thing, you kind of want to set this to the end domain. And this is why we need a search index. But we'll get to that once we create that page. Just in the meantime, see if we have anything. Nope. Cool. So the second package we need is Typesense, which is the Typesense package. It makes sense. It just makes things way more easier to install this, as it has a lot of the admin stuff already built in. We could technically write these queries ourselves, but it's way easier to do it like this. Right, so let's have a look at the cluster. Okay, so it finished. And what I've noticed is this one's completely finished. It's healthy. The first time I did this, it took a while to become healthy. But you need it to be healthy to generate an API key. So that's what we did now. And as you see, it will download like a TXT file. So please tell me you're not going to steal this. I'm just kidding. Which has all our keys in it. So as you can see, it has the API, the admin API key, and it has the search API key. So we'll set those in our environment. And we need to set this domain, right? So as you can see, it's that thing. So that completes all our environment files. We'll get to using them in a second. A little bit about Astro. So Astro kind of uses next routing underwater, or well, not really, but it looks like a next routing. So we can have a folder called pages. Inside we can have index. They have their own extension, which is super powerful. And that will create like our index page. However, for this search index, we want to create a Typesense file in our library, I guess. So what I generally do is create like a library folder. Then I want to have a Typesense JS file. This will kind of handle all our admin stuff, so including setting up Typesense. So I'm just going to copy this from my article as it makes a bit more sense. So what we do is we require the .env, which will technically read the env file. Then we load Typesense, and we load the node fetch. We use the node fetch in a second to retrieve our search page. Right, and then we need a function that can automatically invoke, like the immediately invoke function, which looks something like this. So this will run the moment we, let's just try that, just so you guys see what's going on. So if we, so if we're in our project and I say, okay, node, execute for lib Typesense, then I missed something. Did I not? Maybe I forgot to install Typesense. Did I? No, I did. Okay, let's get to that in a second. I'm pretty sure I forgot something. Maybe it's because it's... Right, let's just see what we set up here. This definitely should be in. Okay, what did we... Maybe we didn't install npm. That would be a rookie mistake. So in the meantime, okay, maybe I just missed installing npm before. Let's just see. No. Okay, it definitely is saying. Okay, it needs Babel. Okay, let's just install that. I must have missed that in my version, which I can't remember. Let's just see if that works. Okay, so that's a little bit of a technical thing. Obviously, Typesense now requires Babel runtime, which I'm not sure if it is because it's the latest version or something, but it doesn't matter. I'll address it in the article as well. So to show you what happens if we execute node and then this file, it'll say here. So that means this function is executed. And why that makes a difference is because this is an async function, because we want to use some awaits in a second. So we want to await some of the calls we're doing to Typesense Cloud. Let's just keep an eye on this. All right. So the first thing we want to do is create a new Typesense client in here. So, right. So what we do here is we call the Typesense package and initialize a new client. This client takes some arguments. You can find that in the Typesense docs. They're pretty good explained. And what we do is we set the host, port, and protocol with our environment variables. So remember this. This links to whatever we said in the .env file. And we set the API key to the admin key. And then you can set a connection timeout, which I think 2 was the default, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll just leave it at that. So now we have a connection to Typesense Cloud and our cluster that we just created, so this one. So as you can see, this is still empty. It has no collections in it. So we need to create one. We can either do it through here to the interface, also works, but I just like to do it by code. So what we'll do is we'll create a post scheme, which like this defines what we want to have. So we want to have a scheme, a collection called post with the following fields, right? So we also saw that here in our presentation. And this is basically how you create it. You can add some more data if you want it, like which fields should be the main fields and whatnot. But we don't really have a need for that at the moment. Then we can create it. And that's just really as simple as calling the client collections create with this schema. And as you can see, here is where we kind of want to await this. Sorry for the noise. My dog is having a moment. We want to await this. And oh, hey, Jason. Jason joined us from Typesense. Cool to have you aboard. I hope I'm explaining Typesense in the right way. I do think so. But right. So what I was saying. So that should create the collection for us. So if we now execute this command, it will create it. This await is not really needed at this point, but in a second we'll add some more stuff to it, and then you'll see why we need it. So let's just go ahead and execute this. Hope it went all right. And then if we go back here to the cluster, we should see a post collection, right? So this is now created a true node. So we just executed a node script, and that created it for us. So if we look at the schema, it has the fields we described, and it has the name post, which is basically also here the thing. So we can't use this search yet because it's not populated. So that's going to be a important aspect of it. So we can either add manual documents, right? So you can see that it auto fills this for us based on the schema with the values it should have. But we're not going to do that yet because we want to do that through our script, right? Because the script is obviously easier and it can get the actual post. So we want to use this stuff. Right. That being said, what we need is a searchable JSON index, because this is kind of a, well, I wouldn't say downside to Astro, but they have an amazing system to retrieve posts. So I'm going to show this to you. Like I said, you have .astro files, and they use front matter. So front matter is these 3 dashes, and the 3 dashes allow us to have JavaScript, TypeScript, or something like that inside. And what this one, for instance, does, it can fetch the content. Just say hi to the dog. Right. And whoa, sorry for that. Yeah, so it can fetch content, right? And that's so powerful because this can just get all our markdown files and it will parse the content. So that will automatically get all the fields we need. So this is basically what we need, but we can only use this in Astro files. So we can't use the Astro fetch content in the JS file, which is a bit of a mission, really. But I know the Astro team is working on something like that so that Astro becomes a global component. So we might refactor it at one stage. Let's see, Q&A. Can you link Typesense to your Shopify site? Yes, you can. I don't know if there is a plugin already, but you can definitely link Typesense to your Shopify site. It would be cool if there's a plugin for that. Maybe Jason will know that. In the meantime, so we're just going to head back to our post. So creating the searchable index, I found a little hack around Astro, which I also shared on my own blog. So what we can do is we can create a search.json.astro file, meaning it turns into a search.json file, but with the Astro extension. That way we can kind of just like use front matter. So what we can do is add some front matter. We can fetch all our posts, and then we can map through them, right? But we want to use this one. Explain it in a little bit. So we want to create a JSON variable, which is the JSON stringified version of a map of all our posts. So all our posts contain quite a lot of data, like the date, the order, the content, whatnot. But we only need these 3 fields. So we just want to map them to the right format. And then we want to JSON stringify that, because if we do that, we can just say, okay, give us all the JSON export. I'm mixing up languages here. So like that. So if we now take our live example and we go to search JSON, we can see that we now generated a post. This is obviously not formatted, but doesn't really matter. You can see this is like a JSON structure, having the title, description, and a slug. So Okay, Jason says they don't have a Shopify plugin at the moment, but you could definitely use the Shopify API to fetch products and index them. So that's basically what I was going to show you now. So we're going to use Node to run a script that will populate our index. So if you even have an export or an XML feed of your products, you could literally use that to populate this. So this is where Typesense becomes very powerful to me. So let's just see how we now can use this. So this is all we need to create a JSON file. So I'm just going to close that. I'm going to go back here because this Typesense JS file is what will populate it. So if we go back here, we go to this step now. We're going to populate our search index with these 3 posts. So generally, you want to populate with a lot of data, but we only have 3 posts. So it just should be enough to demonstrate what we're going to do. Just heading back to this post. Right. So what I found is that we first need to delete the old post collection, right? Because a static site generator only builds the site on build time. So once we build, it generates everything and it doesn't like update on refresh or something like that. So it just means the easiest way to go about this is to delete the whole collection and repopulate it. Right. So we can just add this before a post scheme. So here. So what this does, it will delete the post collection if it exists. And also will just log an error saying that it can't delete it for whatever reason. So it could be that it doesn't exist. And then we want to retrieve our JSON data. So we want to do that here because we first want to wait that it creates this thing again. So this will just recreate it. So this data const will fetch. So this is what we needed the node fetch for, our search endpoint. And if you remember correct, that's set to the JSON file we just created. And then we turn that into JSON, right? Because else it will read as plain text and you can't loop it. So then what we want to do, and this is the last step to this, is we want to loop over each item and create a document inside Typesense. So each searchable thing is called a document, and we'll create that based on the post. The post, if you remember correctly from the JSON, is already in the right format, right? So the post will have a title, description, and a slug, and that's exactly what Typesense is expecting from a post document. So that's because we defined it here. So just make sure that that marks up with whatever you defined as the collection. All right, so and I think that's basically it for this little part. So we can now run this, and we can head back to our cluster. And as you can see, our cluster is still here, but now we have this search query, and you can see it's populated with the 3 indexes we created. So we have the posts and we have the descriptions and stuff, and we can search in here if you wanted to, but that obviously will link. So here is if we search on tree. So pretty cool, right? So that already gives us a Typesense search, but what we kind of want is to have a searchable Astro side. So what we kind of want to end up with is having like a /search thing, or you could have it here if you want to make it into a component. Let's just go back here. So we kind of want this little field and a simple search website. We're just going to head back over to my article, right? So the first step is we need to create a search.astro file in our page directory. So I'm just going to go here, search Astro, and then we want to have some front matter. So as I said, front matter is kind of like the brains of your page, right? So what it does is it can import component. I forgot to mention that. That's also what makes Astro very powerful. So if you're familiar with React, you can now use this stuff like as a base header or whatever. And that's really powerful stuff. So you'll see in a minute how that works. And then we can define some variables just to make things easier. And then the HTML for it is, I'm just going to paste it like that. And that's basically our main page. So let's just have a look at what it renders now. So if we now go here, open up the search. Doesn't look fancy, but it rendered. Why doesn't it look fancy? Because right, yeah, this obviously links to a style sheet that I didn't include. I might have linked it here. No, I didn't. Right, it's in the GitHub repo, so I kind of link a GitHub repo here at the bottom. So if for whatever reason you want to follow along and you kind of stuck on something, then you can find it here. So here we go. So I'm just going to copy this. Oops. So in your public, you can do this however you want. So you can use Tailwind pretty easily. This just has some of the search stuff already in it. So, oh, whoops. Did I close that? No, I did. Good close. So now you can see it looks a little bit better. Just seeing if we don't have any other Q&As. Feel free to ask if anything pops up, people, and we'll sort you out. So, okay, but this obviously doesn't do anything. As you can see, we created a div and a search box div and a hits div, but it doesn't do anything. So it only renders a title. So from there, we kind of want to load the instance search. What's the right word for this? It's like a UI component, right? So the instance search adapter and instance search itself. They do have an npm package, but due to some complications in this specific Astro version, that's a bit difficult. So I just use it without it, right? So just paste that at the bottom here. It's the easiest way to go. It's cd unloaded, so it's pretty quick. And then we want to create a way to have our environment variable set, right? So this again is like a little bit of a hacky solution almost, due to a slight limitation in Astro where it can't, in this version, it can't use npm variables inside JS files, right? So we kind of want to define some of our variables here, and just bear in mind that these are not like high-end variables, right? They just make it easy to switch between production and development. So all these things are not like a secret, really. So we could just set them in the file we're going to create, but then we create a search.js file, and this search.js file is what's going to hold all our magic. So just going to copy this. So we create this in our public directory, so we can have search.js. So normally you would just load your .environment file here, but then we have to load this file as a module, and it's just a little bit more of an issue in Astro in terms of how it renders at the moment. But it doesn't take away that it won't work. So this can load our Typesense search key from this subset variable, and the same for all the other variables, cache search results, and we define a search parameter. So as a search parameter, we say query by title or description. So we can search through either title or description. And then, let's see. So that's our adapter. Then we want to create a client, which uses like the adapter, and we say, okay, use this client, and search through our post in there. So you could make this dynamic again, but we only have post. And then we want to add a widget, right? So this is kind of what we loaded with the CDN. So we can say, okay, search, you must add a widget. And what it does, it adds like an instant search widget, which is called search box. And it links to the search box div. So you can see the hashtag is like to indicate it should look for an ID with search box. And then if we go back here, you can see we have a div with the ID search box. So that will render our search box. And then we want to render our hits, which are the search results, into this hits div, which you can see here. And what it does, you can define a template for each hit, right? So I just added some styling to this. So I want to render a div with search preview. I want to link it. So I want to link the title, and I want to render the description, and then I want to add a slug. So a link to read more. So if we now save this, we need to still search. Run search start. So the search is now like our instant search setup. And I think the instant search is actually powered by Algolia, or I don't know. It is from Algolia. I don't quite know. But right. So what you see here now is initially it will load, I think, the X amount of results. But now if we search here, you can see it automatically updates. So that's basically what we wanted. So if you can search for post, it will obviously find everything. But if you say post number, it will re-rank them. And I think if there's only one hit, no. Okay, so yeah, that'll just render like this, and they can still link through to wherever we were. So pretty powerful stuff, if you ask me. And that's already it for this part. So I'm just going to go back to my thingy, because the last thing we want is the post build command, which is basically very easy. We already created this. We just need a way to call it. So I'm going to go back to my code, and where we define this is in our package, right? So what you can do in any npm package is you can say, I want to define a post build. So this will execute after the build is done. So the build is this command. So you can say post this command. You should run, and then we said node source lib typesense.js. So every time our build now runs, it will execute this command. So it will run the typesense file we created. So then let's say we now add another article, right? So this we should have post 4 is here, whatever. And then we build, so our thing will build again. It will create it will delete the old post data, and it will create a new one. It will populate based on a search index. And then once that's done, our site will be published. So that's just basically perfect. I see I made a typo. Oh, I didn't save. My bad. So let's see it in action. I don't know if I know. Oh, right. I think I may have made a mistake here. No, I did give this a unique name. Right. Oh, wait. It might have been that I just need to restart it. Oh. Okay, let's see if that works. Yeah, so now our fourth post is also added. And as you can see, we can search for it. So pretty cool stuff. Oh yeah, what I wanted to show you guys is that this Typesense is pretty amazing in terms of how good it is at, like, so let's say we do this. So 4, obviously a full match, but if you do 5, like it still finds what we're looking for, because like, you know, it can just react to that, and it's like a fuzzy search, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, that's about it. So that's how easy it is to add Typesense to an Astro or any static site. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the chat over here, and I'll get back to you. I'll just stop sharing my screen so we can have a chat. Right. So yeah, to get back, Jason says the instant search is a search UI library. It's open source by Algolia. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And then they built the adapter to make it work with Typesense. So pretty cool. Yeah. So as I said, pretty cool and exciting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if there are any questions, please let me know.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that session, Chris. I think we covered a lot of ground in very quick time. I think there are definitely some questions in the Q&A section. Maybe you want to look at them and take them.
Yeah, let me. Oh, whoa! I only see him now. Right. Is there any specific reason why you used Astro site for integrating Typesense? Yeah, it's because I'm a quite big fan of static websites, and I do think they are kind of the future, right? So we as developers are quite responsible for creating fast websites. You know, it was a time when every website needed like a million jQuery plugins and fancy animations, and it's all cool. But then in the end, it's all bandwidth, and you know, it's not nice. So I'm a big believer of static sites because they're just the fastest thing out there. And it doesn't mean they don't have to be, they can't be dynamic, as you can see. So we can add a search and it's kind of still dynamic. A little bit of the downside, of course, as I said, is that Astro is very much in a little startup phase. And yeah, they have some bugs out there that they are working on. But yeah, that's why I wanted to use Astro, just because I like supporting them. They're open source, and they just need the help they can get. Hope that answers your question. Then we have a question from Sleepwalker asking if can you use Gatsby plugin on Typesense. I'm not sure if there is a plugin already, but you can definitely use Typesense in a Gatsby website. So that would almost be the same, probably even easier, because Gatsby would be able to use the NPM package for the search interface. So the search interface would be actually easier in a Gatsby website. All right. Then we have a question for Sharu. What are the system requirements for installing Typesense? That's a good question. I don't know what you need to self-host Typesense, but we do have Joshua here. He might be able to answer that for you. So I'm just going to pause that for a second. He's saying there is a Gatsby plugin, actually. Okay, that's even more amazing. And he would love to collaborate on an Astro plugin. So yeah, I'd be happy to even look into that, Jason, after this session. Then we have a question from Aviyel. What was the biggest challenge you as a dev faced with Typesense and creating the static website? I think the biggest challenge for me is always getting the the list of JSON posts, right? I've built a static website search before, and it was all custom-made JavaScript. So just vanilla JavaScript search. The biggest downside there is that you can't use fuzzy search. It doesn't index, it doesn't scale, because you're literally searching off a JSON file. So I was very happy that Typesense has a good fix for it. The downside at the moment is that you have to load some JavaScript. I know you kind of need the JavaScript, but I would like to see it as a component maybe. So I'd be definitely keen to try and make it into a Astro plugin, so you can use it as a component on its own. Hope that answers that question. Just gonna see, because I think, yeah. So Jason in the public chat, he shared the requirements. Just gonna look it up. Right. So yeah, basically just you need X amount of RAM. You need the right CPU. It's really well documented. So definitely check it out. It's linked in the public chat. Heading back over to the Q&A, there is one more question from I Am Rude. Cool name. Can the items have weightage? Yeah, it can. Also, if this weightage can be calculated based on other fields, like a map reduce. That's a very good question. I'm not too sure if the weightage can be calculated based on other fields. I do actually think I've seen that. Let me see if I can find anything about that. So Typesense has really well documented stuff. I'm just gonna search on, that's ironic, search on the Typesense website. But the way, they definitely have that. I've seen that. The relative weight, you can say. So I'm not too sure. Query by weights. The relative weights you can give to each query by field, but I don't know if you can map them. Right, so for instance, query by weights 112 with query will give equal weight to field A and B and twice the weight to field C. So you can definitely do stuff like that, it looks like. I'm going to share that article as well in the public chat. So yeah, I think it has a lot of power, actually. I only used a little bit because for a static website, you want to search for like fuzzy description search or title search most of the time. So I didn't really need something advanced. But like, let's say you have a product service, so the Shopify instance, you might indeed want to search for other things. So very good question, though. And I do think it's all possible. Right, so yeah, that was it from my side. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add at this point.
Thanks so much, Chris. I think we had a really interactive session. You took us through most of the questions. Big shout out for taking time out, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. Last chance, if anybody has some questions, please do post them on the chat group. If not, we'll call it quits in a bit. Big shout out to Jason also, who joined and who was really contributing from the chat. Hopefully next time we can do a joint session and you guys can really jam on a couple of things. Thanks so much, Jason, for joining and helping us with some of the questions there. Big shout out to everyone else. Thanks so much for being a part of the 5th edition of Coffee and Code. We have live coding sessions happening almost every day on Aviyel. So anybody who's eager to learn on implementing open source projects, please head over to Aviyel. You'll be able to find something happening every day. And we have about 1 or 2 events happening every week as well. So we can keep you posted there. As Chris mentioned, you can find the entire article for this implementation on Aviyel. So in case you guys have any questions, feel free to kind of go to the article. I'm just sharing it again so that anyone who wants to find it can ping that article. We also recorded the video, so this entire session will be available to you shortly on the YouTube channel of Aviyel. So hopefully that will be great for anybody who wants to learn. Thanks so much again, Chris. I think this was a really great session. Really enjoyed you taking us through the whole thing. Really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And indeed, thanks to Jason for stepping in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Jason as well. Jason is the maintainer of Typesense, so really appreciate his time on the project. Thank you, everyone. Good morning to everyone on the West Coast, and good evening to everyone on the Eastern Hemisphere. Catch you guys later. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.